Welcome to this third session of the first module, which looks at FTA provisions on sustainable and inclusive aspects of trade in new generation FTAs signed by Vietnam. These provisions cover labour, environment, gender, and SMEs. I look forward to taking you through the scope and the implications of each of these provisions.
This section will provide the basis for cooperatives and exporters to understand most free trade agreements by explaining key terminologies. These key terminologies are covered in the handbook, and we will explain what they are and why they are relevant to improving cooperatives' export capacity. Specifically, this session will look at the FTA provisions on the sustainable and inclusive aspects of trade such as labour, environment, gender, and SMEs. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development recognizes trade as an engine for inclusive economic growth and poverty reduction. It also acknowledges that trade is an important means to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. For example, trade supports Goal 17 on partnerships to achieve the goals by promoting a rules-based, open, and multilateral trading system. Trade also contributes to the achievement of Goal 10 on reduced inequality through the implementation of special and differential treatment for developing countries, in particular least developed countries. We have also seen that aid for trade support in developing countries has contributed to improved regional infrastructure to improve connectivity both the formal and informal sectors, supporting Goal 8 on decent work and economic growth. Take a moment to go through the other goals that trade helps to achieve before moving on. These sustainable requirements and voluntary standards are raising the bar for cooperatives to enter the market. We are seeing that demand in export markets is moving towards products that follow more environmentally friendly and socially responsible standards. This creates challenges for exports of Vietnamese cooperatives' agricultural, forestry, and fish products. Traceability and production management systems have not been implemented on a wide scale, weakening the ability of Vietnamese cooperatives to meet these requirements. Similarly, strict requirements on reporting due diligence related to sustainable standards, labor, and environmental protection may represent a major challenge for cooperatives. Nevertheless, there are successful cases of Vietnamese cooperatives that have adopted sustainability standards and certifications to access export markets. These sustainable requirements and voluntary standards may represent an opportunity for early adopters but will be a major hurdle for those who do not keep up. It is important to recognize the differentiated impact that trade has on different societal groups. In this regard, inclusive trade refers to the principle that all levels of society should gain from increased trade. Inclusive provisions aim to ensure that the benefits and opportunities that flow from trade are more widely shared, including with marginalized groups such as women, SMEs, indigenous peoples, and ethnic minorities. Recently signed free trade agreements cover at least a reference or a provision related to various aspects such as labor standards, environmental protection, gender equality, and social inclusion and SMEs. The scope and details of commitments under FTA on sustainable and inclusive development may vary, but generally they cover rules in these four areas. We will now explore each of these provisions. Labor provisions require FTA parties to respect and uphold labor protection principles as recognized in international conventions, such as those by the International Labour Organization. They also promote effective implementation and enforcement of domestic labor laws. There are 5 key areas of labor protection: freedom of association and the right to collective bargaining, the elimination of all forms of forced or compulsory labor. Abolition of child labor, the elimination of discrimination with respect to employment and occupation, and acceptable conditions of work with respect to minimum wages, hours of work, and occupational safety and health. Let us now look at environmental protection provisions. These provisions aim to uphold the commitments of environmental protection under several multilateral environment agreements. Multilateral environment agreements comprise a wide range of environmental protection areas, such as protection of the ozone layer, protection of the marine environment, sustainable marine capture fisheries, sustainable forest management, and protection of endangered species of wild fauna. These are the most common provisions which fall under government obligations. Environmental protection provisions also aim to promote effective implementation and enforcement of domestic environment laws. Furthermore, accelerate the transition to a low-carbon economy. Environmental provisions are also increasingly integrated into value chains through measures such as corporate social responsibility, voluntary sustainability standards, and carbon pricing, among others. The third type of provision relates to gender equality and social inclusion provisions. These aim to promote gender equality and social inclusion through commitments such as elimination of gender discrimination, capacity development, and cooperation. Furthermore, Vietnam also typically reserves the right to promote the welfare and employment of ethnic minorities and people living in disadvantaged areas through measures such as government-supported loans, guarantees, and insurance. It is worth highlighting that there are various opportunities to strengthen women's empowerment in Vietnam, including in the cooperative sector. 23% of Vietnamese agricultural cooperatives are led by women. However, women are underrepresented in the planning and decision-making processes in the cooperative sectors. A survey has also shown that there is a large wage gap of as much as 42% between male and female members. Free trade agreements also promote SMEs' participation in international trade through measures such as cooperation, information sharing for SMEs, and trade facilitation. For example, the CPTPP requires that parties establish and maintain a website dedicated to SMEs and containing information on the CPTPP. Such information includes the full text and summary of the agreement, a description of the rules relevant to SMEs, and any additional information or resources that could be helpful to SMEs. Links to the SME websites and relevant government agencies or other entities that provide information on trading, investing, or doing business in that party's territory are also provided. Thank you for listening to the first module. We look forward to having you join us in the second module.